Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
"65% said the debates were very important, 10% saying they were the most important factor. That's why you're seeing Rubio falling down into a distant fourth place, because the debates absolutely came apart in the debates in a classic moment that will be entertaining for years to anybody who likes politics. Yeah.
And something to just prove and to point out that they are robotic. They've got their canned answers.
Yeah.
They're puppets. And it's also surprising how with the media, with social media, and being able to play that back, people being able to voice their opinions on Twitter in live time, things like that. You're seeing sort of the veil. Mainstream people are really seeing this veil being pulled back, not just those of us who have already kind of had it pulled back a little bit.
Yeah, of course, it's being able to transcend and get around the eyewash media, but also the traditional way that people communicate with voters through television ads. That is just not on the table this time. Donald Trump is able to go directly to people with Twitter, can completely go around the gatekeepers that get paid so much money. Jeb Bush has blown through over $100 million worth of super PAC money on TV ads, and it has absolutely done nothing for him, nothing for him. And now that the polls are closed, they can take a look at their exit polls and see how things are breaking for a particular candidate. When you got that much of a lead, he's got an 18-point lead right now over the second place person, and he had been projected to have something like that. So it's not really a surprise. It's not really a reach to say that Donald Trump is going to win this. He's at 34%. Number two is Kasich. And that's something of a surprise, because there's been this race between Kasich, Bush, and Rubio, and also Christie. Christie and Kasich have spent the most time in New Hampshire. They felt they could pull it out there. It's not worked out very well for Chris Christie, but it has worked out very well for John Kasich in terms of pulling in a second-place finish there. He's been polling very, very low. So I don't know that he's going to do that well outside of New Hampshire. I think this is an anomaly, just like I think Cruz doing really well in Iowa. That was something of an anomaly there, because he was able to tie into the evangelical kingmakers that way they have in Iowa. And they have skewed the results in the last several elections in Iowa, so that on the GOP side, Iowa is not really a very good predictor.
Right, and it's interesting, we're seeing Bush rising up from the ashes.
Yeah, he's in third place, and he's going to make a big deal of that, but he's only got 12%, and he spent a lot of money. This guy has spent over $100 million, and the best he can show for it is 12% in New Hampshire, a third-place finish. I would say loser.
Hey.
It is a very small minority of precincts that have reported 12% on the Republican side, 15% on the Democrat side. The thing to watch for here is with Chris Christie currently sitting at the 8% level as I'm looking at the CNN screen. What it is that it appears that what they want to do is have as many candidates as possible finish with over 10% of the votership, because anybody that gets 10% or more gets delegates out of New Hampshire. So, as we've already stated in previous interviews, for Trump to really seriously go into the RNC in July in Cleveland, Ohio, he needs to be sitting on probably 60% of the delegates. 60, not 50, 60, because of the super delegate situation. You know, the RNC, lockstep, they're going to go establishment. Those are the super delegates, and other establishment GOP members are super delegates. So Trump really needs 60%. Right now, in these proportional states, they're going to try to keep him down at 30 or 40% of the delegates, which those are not enough to go into Cleveland with and be assured of victory. So, like I say, watch for Chris Christie. It's going to be key to watch with all these precincts still out there. Will not be surprised to see his numbers creep up to 10%. So that'll give them another candidate to split the delegates with.
So far, the good news is that Dilbert was wrong, right?
Yeah.
Remember, there's a story on Infowars.com today about the creator of the popular cartoon series Dilbert. Give me a mouse over here. He said that the fix is in, and that Mr. Roboto Rubio was going to be the GOP. You know, the GOP was going to rig it for him to win, but it looks like Rubio is sinking fast, and that's the way I like it.
Well, I know you talked about this a little bit earlier today, or possibly Watson as well, that, I mean, they might go for the big rig and hope to not get caught, but if they do, would be other minions that would be thrown to the fire. But
well, we know Marco Rubio, he's the stereotypical poster child for the GOP candidates, along with Jeb Bush. Yeah. So we know that those are the establishment candidates. But it's very interesting to see. Yeah, I don't think I have heard that there's a big divide right now between conservatives and the traditional conservatives. For example, they will still go to Fox News to watch breaking news coverage. But more and more people, they no longer trust the analysis of Fox News. So there's this division. More and more people are now going to places like the Drudge Report or Breitbart or, of course, yours truly, Infowars.com. So they're abandoning Fox News. They no longer worship Fox, and that's just on the right-wing side, you know. But Donald Trump knows this, and that's why he's able to openly speak out, you know, even criticize people like, God forbid, say anything bad about Senator John McCain, who is a war hero, you know. And that's what the establishment wants you to think. But now if you tune into Infowars or Breitbart or the Drudge Report, people are learning that maybe John McCain wasn't a war hero after all.
Now, we've been talking a lot about Donald Trump and the things that are going on out there in New Hampshire. We do have our reporters on the ground, and we will go to them when Mr. Trump takes the stage. But for the time being, let's talk about the other winner today, Mr. Bernie Sanders. Now, I know you talked about this a little bit, Leanne, when you were discussing why people are feeling the burn, so to speak. I had a chance to go out to the University of Texas last week, and I did a man on the street, and I asked people a very simple question. I said, who is your favorite presidential candidate? And then I asked them to follow up, and what is your favorite policy? And many people were feeling the burn. They said they like Bernie Sanders. And the reason why is because many of the programs that he's suggesting that we implement in the country, such as free college tuition. Now, when I asked the young lady, I said, well, who's going to pay for all this? You know, where you can get money for this? And she said, well, hopefully the rich people in America will pay for it. Now, if you look at Mr. Sanders' plan, he does have something targeted towards, I guess, what you would refer to as the 1%. But also, if you look deeper into his plan to fund these programs that he's trying to implement, he also targets people who make around $250,000 a year. Now, it's much more than the average American makes, but that is far from the billionaire boys club of the 1%. So it's kind of like that old analogy of the crabs in the bucket, right? You know, the crabs are trying to crawl out the bucket and they never make it out because another crab grabs them and snatches them back down. It's the same thing. People don't make it out of the upper middle class because as soon as they're about to get up to that next level, the taxes or whatever else come and snatch them back down. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, especially the younger voters. And to be fair, you know, if I was 17, 18 years old, I'd probably be seduced by the siren song of Bernie Sanders as well. But we really need to have people understand this, that free stuff isn't free. And you college kids, you know, once you move out of mom and dad's house and you're out there paying your own bills and you make a decent amount of money, you're going to be reminded every time you look at that paycheck and you see how much taxes they take out, that free stuff is not free.
I want to say I still love New Hampshire, and I always will.
Oh, what difference does it make?
Live.
Yeah, what difference does it make? What difference does it make? That's what she should have done.
To the entire country. We're going to fight for every vote in every state.
And I want to remind everybody, I still have 422 delegates.
That make a real difference in people's lives.
Wow.
You know,
there's that word difference.
What difference does it make?
We were facing profound challenges as a country. The way
that I helped to create.
We're going just wasn't right. It isn't right that the kids
with that administration.
Wait, we're not going in the right direction? I thought she was part of that administration.
Wait, we just had 8 years of Obama.
Yeah.
She was part of his administration.
It isn't right for a grandmother.
Oh, she's a granny.
In New Hampshire or anywhere else to have to choose between paying rent and buying medicine because a prescription drug company increased the price 4,000% overnight. And it isn't right.
Oh,
maybe
it's all Martin Shkreli's fault.
It's his fault. Those little whippersnappers.
No one else is to blame.
Is he a millennial?
Doing the same work,
or is he a Gen Y?
For more years.
He's young.
Well, you know, those grandmothers could fix their economic problems if they just give some speeches to Goldman Sachs.
Right.
No problem at all. I hear they pay really well if you suck up to them. Yeah.
What are we going?
Finger wag them.
Yeah.
You bad banks, don't you do that again. That's what she said. I marched in there.
That is the fight we're taking to the country. What is the best way to change people's lives so we can all.
Well, apparently it's not your ways, Hillary.
Change maker. And here's
they do definitely want to change people's lives, though. I just don't think they're going to be satisfied with it when it happens.
Promise. I will work harder than anyone to actually make the changes.
Hey guys, Hillary just mentioned that she's going to rein in Wall Street when she is president. She just said those words came out of her mouth.
But did she mean R-E-I-G-N? She's going to reign in Wall
She will
Street?
reign over Wall Street, and her speaking fees are going to double, is what she said.
Yes. It's all double speak here coming out of the mouth of Hillary Clinton. Yeah. Of course, there were reports
It's double speaking fees. Double speaking fees.
Newspeak fees, yeah.
You better hashtag that right away. News.
Yeah, guys, we were just talking behind the scenes. In fact, Kit Daniels just showed up. If you should come back here because you wrote this article. But we're just talking about what a disaster the Jeb Bush campaign has been from the very, very beginning. And I think everybody's sick of the Bush dynasty. That's true. And they want an anti-establishment candidate. They want to just move on. But it's no wonder he's not doing well when he hits the campaign trail telling people that he will not blame Obama for anything. Yeah. That's a bad campaign advice right there.
Yeah.
So it's like saying, if I become president, I will pardon Obama for any, crimes, just like Gerald Ford pardoned, Richard Nixon. So,
well, because he knows it's not really his brother or Obama. They're just the puppet.
What is wrong with that? That is a horrible campaign strategy to go around saying that.
He's just a spineless fence sitter. Okay, that's what he is. He can't criticize his brother's war in Iraq, even though everybody knows that was a crock right now. He thinks he can get excitement in his campaign by putting an exclamation point after his name. You know what? You really can't. You really aren't going to get there with that. And look at the different things that he's done in his campaign when he was going head to head with Rubio, and that's really what was happening in New Hampshire. He believed that he and Rubio were going to be fighting it out for second place. I don't think he gave as much credit to Kasich there. And so he was running a lot of ads attacking Rubio. What did he attack Rubio on? He attacked Rubio by saying, look, he's wearing boots that have a little bit too high of a heel on it. I mean, so incredibly petty. And playing this music soundtrack, these boots are made for walking, and it was tacky, it was cheap,
but see,
it was a low blow.
He learned from his dad, and he learned from his brother. They ran the same type of campaigns back in the day. I just don't think it works anymore. Yeah. I think the people are done with the Bush dynasty. They want to move on.
Exactly. He spends $120 million running ads like that, attacking Rubio, and then comes back and says, well, I don't have a height issue. No, Jeb doesn't have a height issue. He has a stature issue, a lack of stature, okay? He may be 6'3", but he has absolutely no stature. Let's play that clip about where he's talking about himself being Vito Corleone, because I thought that was a great example of how Bush, even when he wants to brag about himself or when he wants to attack somebody else, he never can quite get it right. He's just not there. Do you guys have that clip ready?
Vito Corleone.
Yeah, Vito Corleone.
They call me Vito Corleone because I vetoed 2,500 separate line items in the budget.
Okay, they call me Vito Corleone. Now, if you remember The Godfather, okay, they've got this cracker senator out in Nevada, and he introduces Vito Corleone as Mr. Vito Corleone. Remember?
Because I vetoed 2,500 separate line items in the budget.
Right, so he goes out, he says, I'm going to be Vito Corleone. And so he pronounced it Corleone, like the senator.
Corleone.
I mean, can't get anything right. And we look at this, and the standing joke in our house with Travis and others is like, Fredo, when he goes home to the Bush crime family head, I'm sure the Bush crime family head looks at him and says to Jeb, Fredo, you broke my heart. You just don't have it, man.
I know. He's just so sad. He makes me just really sad. He had to pay people to be excited. Yeah. I'll pay you extra if you're excited in the chairs.
Please clap. Pull that thing up. We'll play that again. That was the most pathetic thing. And when you look at that in context, what is he saying? He says, we need a strong, quiet leader. We don't need somebody who's going to be blustering around, all this kind of stuff. Yeah, let's play that clip.
Talking a big game without backing it up. I think the next president needs to be a lot quieter, but send a signal that we're prepared to act in the national security interests of this country to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
Hey, he needs cue cards. They're going to start putting cue cards for the audience. Applause now.
But we look at that in the context of things. He goes, I think the next leader needs to be really strong, but project quiet power.
It's like a campaign that's being run out of Comedy Central.
Yeah.
Exactly. He's such an idiot.
Pathetic.
He's such an idiot. And then he goes and he attacks Trump. And remember in the debate, right? Friday night, they're saying, well, you know, he's been advised. Some advisors say, yeah, we told him, you got to throw that punch. You know, you're the guy who can really do this. You've got that right hook, but you got to throw the punch. Well, here's the punch that they gave him. They said, attack Trump on eminent domain. Good idea, because he's very vulnerable on that. He's wrong on that issue. If you don't allow people to have private property, the same property rights for people, whether you are a small businessman or whether you are a large businessman, you should get the same property rights. You shouldn't have your property stolen, okay? And not taken for private use under any circumstances. But Trump is on the wrong side of that issue. So what he does is he throws that at him, and then Trump comes back with the Keystone Pipeline, and Jeb doesn't even know that the Keystone Pipeline is private. Furthermore, the next day, Trump comes out and he goes, oh, and by the way, the Bush family took private property for their baseball stadium, their baseball team in Texas, okay? So he's a hypocrite on that issue, just like on, just as he is on Planned Parenthood issues as well.
But, you know, we're talking about the guys who haven't so much made it when we talk about Bush and all these other guys. But there's another guy I want to talk about who's threatening to throw his hat into the ring. That is Mayor Mikey Bloomberg. And he's on deck, you know, threatening to get in if they are able to take down Hillary, whether it be email scandals or if Bernie just completely knocks her out of the box. He said he's pretty much waiting in the wings and ready to go if he deems it necessary. I think he's going to make his final decision coming up real soon in March. But, you know, I want to ask you guys, when we see a guy like Michael Bloomberg who has armed bodyguards, but he doesn't want anybody else to be armed, he wants to ban sodas and cigarettes and tell you how much salt you can put on your, you know, on your whatever food. It's a real ridiculous kind of situation. And I just really wonder if anybody would take this guy serious as a presidential candidate.
Well, it's going to be kind of interesting because if there was a race without Hillary, if you had Sanders and Trump, for example, and Michael Bloomberg says that would be the condition under which he would come in, I really don't see him taking votes away from Donald Trump. I see him taking votes away from Bernie Sanders, the more liberal wing of that group. And you know, the interesting thing is just today we had him attacking the liberal governor of Virginia, Terry McAuliffe, who's been a Clinton insider. And remember, back around Christmas, in Virginia, he and the attorney general decided that they were going to not recognize the concealed carry permits from 25 different states. They backed off on that. So now Michael Bloomberg is going after Terry McAuliffe.
He's saying he's not anti-gun enough. They actually put out an ad about him in a newspaper here recently, and they said Michael Bloomberg's group, the Everytown group, said basically, you know, he's not anti-gun enough. He doesn't want to get rid of these gun show loopholes. And if you guys haven't seen that episode of Louder with Crowder, it's on the internet, where he goes to all these gun shows and he pretty much debunks this gun show loophole. Because I go to gun shows regularly. Joe Biggs does. I know, David, your boys are into firearms as well. Yeah. Every time I've been to a gun show, the FFL dealers, the real dealers, will check your ID religiously because they know feds come in there trying to bust them.
That's right.
So with that in mind, anybody who thinks that, you know, guys are just, you know, handing out, you know, shotguns like they're candy, you can watch this video and see that is not the case. Now, of course, you do have the ability to private sell. Like, David, I could sell you a firearm right now. That's not an issue. But for your FFL dealers, you do have that in place. So
they're just as careful as they are as if you're buying at a gun store. But but Jakari, as you're pointing out, it's the private sale that they want to shut down. It's not the gun show. They want to shut down private sales. They don't want to say we want to shut down private sales. They want to say we want to shut down gun shows because they don't want you to be able to keep the guns in the family. They don't want you to be able to pass them down, things like that. That's what they're really coming after. It's just another way. Death by 1,000 cuts of the Second Amendment. That's why the Second Amendment said shall not be infringed. They knew that nobody's going to come in and say in one day that, oh, by the way, we're confiscating all the guns tomorrow. They're never going to do that. They're going to take it down bit by bit, incrementalism. Exactly. They're going to take away our ammunition. They're going to take, that's going to be a key thing, putting controls on ammunition.
Magazine limits, all that kind of stuff. And that's another thing. I've seen so many people, they throw out these ad hominems, these buzzwords, when they talk about high-capacity magazine. No, if you buy an AK-47 with a 30-round magazine, that's a standard capacity magazine. That's what comes with it.
Yeah.
They throw out all these buzz terms to confuse people. You know, assault rifle. If you go to a big box store, you go to Academy, you go to Cabela's or whatever it may be in your part of the country, and you see those rifles on the shelf, even though they look like what you see in the movie, those are not fully automatic rifles. And they say, well, you can convert those to fully automatic rifles. Well, you can push the gas in your car and run over people in Las Vegas. You can do anything to hurt people. It's just the person in the ill intent to do so.
Jakari, you sound like an extremist with those views. But it's interesting that either way, the Democrats, they're wanting someone who's going to control every single aspect of their life. So, I mean, nothing is free. Like Bernie Sanders is, the government's going to be controlling everything.
Well, yeah, I think
hand out those freebies. But then you've got someone like Bloomberg who doesn't even let you put salt on the table. You know,
yeah, and you guys touched on it earlier when I believe it was David, you made the point that one of the reasons they're pushing so hard to keep you in school with this free college is so they can continue the indoctrination. And I do agree with that. They can continue to just feed you this system, this nanny state. We make all the decisions that's best for you. And you see so many people now. We've done so many man on the streets where people say, well, the government's just going to take care of me. They're going to, just tell me what to do. It's a very stark contrast from, decades ago, Nixon or whoever. They'd be up to some shady deals. People would go to the White House and shake the bars, and they'd say, oh, no, okay, I'm sorry, we did that. People don't do that anymore. When the government just continues to control that vice or squeeze that vice on them, they just say, well, that's the way it's supposed to be.
Right. I mean, that's what people have come to know. And they're with this indoctrination, you do absolutely learn about obedience, not speaking out, which is why it's interesting to see such a movement there with the young people, but they don't even realize that a lot of what they're pushing is the messages that they've been indoctrinated with.
Well, it's such a faux debate, because they'll teach them to go out there and throw dildos at each other and argue about the stuff. It doesn't matter. But when it comes to real issues that are going to affect them in their day-to-day lives, they could care less.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting to talking about schooling. We can get back to that with Cruz and where he stands on that. Thank you, Jakari. And also, we're seeing on a Drudge Report that Biden has also said he hasn't weighed out, not joining the race as well. Well, let's go ahead and get back to Richard Reeves. He is there in New Hampshire. Richard, what's the update?
All right, Leanne. Well, as you just saw, Bernie is, I guess, doing his Ted Cruz impression by doing a long speech. But I'll tell you, Bernie really has worked it hard. And probably out of all the candidates, his volunteers really are the most fervent. They really are the ones that are probably, they're making probably the most phone calls, knocking on the most doors, which that's a concern because they're just trying to spread that socialist virus. Hey, government, just feed us, clothe us, from womb to tomb. And
but that is the essence of the Democrat Party. That is the essence of the Democrat Party. I mean, Ron Paul tapped into the essence of the Republican Party, saying we want to be left alone. We want freedom. These people want free stuff. Okay, that's the essence of the Democrat message.
Well, and, we know it's a New World Order project to send kids to public school and train them to be good little socialists.
That's right.
And I'll tell you what, unfortunately, they're having huge success. And like I say, it's going viral. But I guess, silver lining in the cloud is potentially Bernie takes down Hillary. So, it's kind of like one of those old jokes, that the bittersweet deal, right? But anyway.
Well, it's interesting because, really the only difference between the Democrat or Democratic socialist would be that one just gives you the idea that you're allowing to vote, whereas the other one is just passing it all with authoritarianism. We will provide you this. It will take our meager rations.
Right. Well, now, kind of on a different subject, shifting gears, one thing we learned that's interesting about New Hampshire is that today's voting was only about the presidential race. Today's voting was only about the presidential race. They had no down-ballot issues, no down-ballot candidates. And we talked to the Deputy Secretary of State, and he said those down-ballot votes occur way in September. It's happening in September, so it's very interesting because one of the things that we're really needing to look for, Leanne and David, one thing that's going to be real important to look for, and I'll be looking for it, as soon as we have a state that has a full ballot where you've got everything from dog catcher issues to local resolutions to, small district and county races, city races, state races, and different races like that, what we're going to really need to look at is to see how many of those incumbents are getting fired in those primaries. That's what's going to be key, because we really need to see some big turnover of incumbents, and that's going to, unfortunately, New Hampshire's not going to give us a good litmus test on that.
We were just showing some B-roll of the guy that's been trolling Marco Rubio, following him around, dressed in a robot costume. And this particular guy, his name is Black. It's Aaron Black, wearing a silver robot costume. He says, "I don't know what's the matter with these Rubio people." He goes, "They have a major malfunction. I must have seriously pressed their buttons," talking about them being robots as well. And when you start beating a guy who's trolling your campaign,
with your campaign sign.
With your candidate's campaign sign, you've got some serious problems, let me tell you.
Well, you know, and it really hasn't even come out yet about Marco Rubio's support for the TPP. We've got that video there, and I know Trump knows about it, though, because in subsequent speeches, you know, his mantra about attacking candidates is he doesn't attack anybody till they attack him. So Marco Rubio has been wise not to attack Trump, because when he does, Trump will definitely call Rubio out about the TPP. And I think if there's anybody that can finish Marco Rubio off, it will be Trump.
Well, Trump doesn't really have to waste any time on Marco Rubio. You got Jeb Bush spending millions of dollars to make fun of him for wearing boots and other things that he's doing. And then, of course, you got Rubio essentially self-destructing in that debate. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. We've had situations where people are prepared with sound bites. They know what the other guy is going to say, and they sling it at him. But this was a situation where Marco Rubio did it to himself, kept repeating his sound bite in a robotic way. And I'm just unprecedented to see anything like that, but really hilarious.
But David, here's the case. I look for the mainstream press to absolutely memory hole. They're going to memory hole what Marco Rubio did about the repetitive nature of his speeches. They're going to memory hole it. I think Marco's not done. He's still, I think, a fair-haired son of the powers that be. So watch.
Well, I can tell you, we're gonna keep repeating it, and we're going to keep repeating to people the fact that we're going to keep repeating to people the fact that he says, let's get over the idea that Barack Obama doesn't know what he's doing. He's got a well-defined plan to take this country down and make it like all the other countries. And then he says, in that clip that you put in your report, where he's talking to the CFR, we need to pass the TPA so we can get the TPP pushed through by Obama.
That's really revealing tweet. It says right here, great news for Trump fans. His victory is wide-reaching. 29% of 100K income, 29% of women, 30% college grads if he keeps that up. Now, the reason I bring this up is earlier on Fox News, they said on, I think it was exit polls, that Trump was getting about 29% of independents votes. And last week, GOP strategist Roger Stone also said that Trump has an extreme amount of crossover support from Democrats. You know, he's attracting a lot of the blue-collar Democrats that voted for Obama in both 2008 and 2012. So, and this is why Iowa is so revealing. You know, people are saying that he lost Iowa, but in fact, his second place finish was a victory, because think about it, Iowa was only for registered Republicans. I think it was just long-term Republicans that were voting in that. He still came in second place. And now we see in New Hampshire, in a primary where independents and Democrats can even vote for Republican candidates, he just ran away with it. So this, I think the New Hampshire victory really shows his strength in a general election.
I think in a general election, I think you're right, Kit. You're talking about the fact that he got like 30-some-odd% of the vote, but that holds pretty consistent across all these demographics in terms of income, in terms of sex, in terms of age, and with the independents. I think it's very clear, and it's been clear to me for a long time, that Donald Trump has got a lot of blue-collar support, people who have seen how they've been damaged as we've exported jobs and imported workers. Those are the people who were Reagan Democrats, and I think you're going to see a lot of those people breaking for Trump. I think you saw them as independents voting for Trump in New Hampshire as well. But yeah, it's very interesting to see that 30% support breaks through across a wide cross-section of demographics.
Yeah, if I could add just one more thing really quickly, on Drudge Report's reporting that Hillary Clinton, the only two demographics that she won, I believe, was 65 plus and people that make over $200,000 a year.
Oh, the Goldman Sachs crowd.
Yeah, they don't want to give their money to Bernie.
Yeah, it's like the same as the Jeb Bush crowd. I mean, you see a Jeb Bush event.
She's supported by the 1%.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this breaks down in further contests. New Hampshire is a more accurate predictor, I think, of the way things are going to go than Iowa was. Certainly for the Republicans, because we've seen the last several contests in Iowa. They have picked Huckabee. They picked Santorum. Iowa is skewed. The Republican Party is a very small part of the Iowa voters, and it's dominated by a few kingmakers who move it towards people who they perceive as being evangelicals. And that's what Cruz did to win Iowa.
Right.
And that's what happened with Huckabee. That's what happened with Santorum. And so if you get a few people that are going to be these kingmakers telling everybody, this guy is the Christian candidate, he's going to win in Iowa, but he's not necessarily going to win anywhere else based on that kind of demographic. So it really is not a good predictor of who the nominee is. New Hampshire has been much more accurate in that for the GOP.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if I may add, I mean, Ted Cruz, he won the evangelicals, but think about it this way. He had to lie to do it.
Yes,
Right.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, you don't hear him invoking the body of Christ anymore, not in New Hampshire, any other speeches that he's given. So you can sort of really see that pandering, which I did not like.
Well, what he did was he stuck a knife in the back of the other candidate that he was competing for the Christian vote, which is Ben Carson. It's one of the dirtiest tricks I've ever seen. It's a tried and true tactic that the day of the election, you're going to throw out some false innuendo about somebody and hurt them before they can respond to it and get the truth out. What Ted Cruz and his entire staff did was, as the caucus was starting, they started spreading this rumor, this lie that Carson was out. And that is still really hurting him. And, of course, Carson is not going to his New Hampshire primary party. He's flying to Florida again. You know, he's done this in both of these contests. He didn't go to the, to the follow-up contest, and he actually didn't even campaign. He had very little presence there in New Hampshire to start with. Let's go to Richard Reeves back at the Trump wrap party.
Okay, thank you, David. We just heard Donald Trump wrap up his victory speech, and this room is beyond New Year's Eve. Everybody was so happy and so delighted. It's unbelievable. One interesting thing that happened, and I don't know if you guys happened to catch it there in the studio, but when Trump came out on Fox here, where they have a live feed here on Fox, Jeb Bush came out to speak and give his speech simultaneously to Donald Trump's speech. So that's probably going to be a little bit of consternation, even more bad blood between the two candidates now, with Jeb Bush being bumped off Fox by Donald Trump. So
I'm sure that was just coincidental, wasn't it, Richard?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well,
perfect timing. One more little jab.
I think that was kind of planned. But,
it was very interesting to see.
Well, also interesting to see Fox News, where they've had this go back and forth with them saying, oh, got to cut to Trump.
Yeah.
He's going to bring in the ratings.
They literally in the beginning had a split screen going, and I don't know, I couldn't tell whose audio they were carrying, but they had a split screen going with Trump on one side, Jeb Bush on the other for a few seconds, and I was going to try to take a photo of it to send to you guys, but it was gone like before I could whip my camera out and get it done. But that'll, like I say, I don't be surprised if we hear about that. And of course, Trump once again, Trump's Jeb Bush. I tell you what, think about it, guys. A year ago, could we have imagined the fall of Jeb? And now it looks like there's serious cracks in Hillary, because it seems like every day that goes by, she's losing another 0.25% or 0.5%. Bernie's gaining steam. Bernie Sanders is probably going to get $20 million by small donors because of this victory. So he's going to have a war chest. And I tell you what, I don't know if Bernie wants to do it, but his supporters are not going to let him stop. His supporters, they're going to prop him up. It'll be like that Weekend at Bernie's thing. They're going to prop him up. They're going to make him run.
Yeah.
So,
even if this old guy dies, they're going to keep, it'll be like Weekend at Bernie's. They'll put him in the car and drive him around.
I would not be surprised if a dead man beats Hillary. I would not be surprised at all.
Okay, so 2 years ago, I found myself on the couch, completely out of shape, overweight. I had no muscle tone, and I just felt horrible. And I knew I needed to make a change, and I needed to start going to the gym and working out. And I did that. I would force myself to go to the gym, and it just really wasn't going very well. That's when my buddy Alex told me to try the Super Male Vitality. And that's what changed everything for me.
Shane Steiner's involvement with InfoWarsLife.com truly happened in an organic way. I went to high school with Shane, his brother, knew his parents well, and he was visiting the office once, hadn't been to the office in years, and said, wow, I notice you're making and selling supplements. Do these really work? Because I've tried a lot of supplements as a workout enthusiast, and I really think most of them are hype. And I said, here, take some home, try it. Well, a few weeks later, he came in blown away and said, I want to buy 3 boxes of this stuff to give my friends and family. It's simply amazing. He said, why does it work so well? And I said, listen, go to InfoWarsLife.com, watch the informational videos with Dr. Group and others. They understand how it all works. I know that it works for me. That's all I understand. The science, the facts, the research, people's testimonials, they're all on InfoWarsLife.com. You can check it out for yourself.
I wanted to go to the gym. I wanted to push myself and work out harder. And that led to me being able to come out and do stuff like the barefooting and the surfing and stuff like that, which I would have never done. I never would have done that 2 years ago.
Shane has said over and over again, more than just libido and energy, it made him want to get into the gym more. It made him want to get in better shape. And believe me, the Steiners have amazing genetics. His brother is a world champion steer wrestler. His dad, Bobby Steiner, is a famous world champion bull rider. They've got natural genetics. But when you added this to the mix, in Shane's own words, it took him to the next level. Shane noticed the mental clarity. Bobby was able to work out longer and gain muscle mass. He's already completely shredded. I gotta admit, for me, the biggest effect has been libido. Now, I've never claimed to have a body like some beach model, but back when I was 20, 22 years old and worked out every day, I looked great. But over the years, and being married, having 3 kids, working 18 hours a day, I gained basically 100 pounds. And it's been a long process losing that weight in the last 4 years. But if you look at the photos and the videos of what I looked like 4 or 5 years ago versus today, the results are dramatic. I'd already cleaned up my diet. I was working out hard, but I'd only lost about 20 pounds. It was adding the other key ingredients from InfoWarsLife.com that helped me personally go to the next level and shed another 35 pounds.
This has actually made me feel so good that here lately, about a year ago, I started training jiu-jitsu, and that kind of led to doing some boxing and kickboxing. I mean, it's amazing that 2 years ago, I was on the couch and couldn't even tie my shoes, and now I'm training with MMA fighters and just doing stuff that I never thought that I would be doing ever again. So Super Male Vitality has allowed me to do some amazing things, and if it has those kind of effects for me, I know that it will do great things for you. So just try Super Male Vitality. I promise you, you'll love it.
And finally, let's look at Anthony Gucciardi, Infowars.com reporter. He also works with Dr. Group and others, helping develop the newest, most cutting-edge, high-quality supplements. Let's take a look at what happened when he tried to barefoot ski for the first time with the Steiners. And remember, we're not making fun of him. He had the will to get in the arena, and he's lost more than 10 pounds in the last few years of fat and gained more than 10 pounds of muscle. And Anthony chalks it up to Super Male Vitality as well. Bottom line, folks, you want to discover the power of Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality for yourself by visiting InfoWarsLife.com today or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139.